Name one thing better than waking up on Christmas morning to a full day of NBA basketball. You know the matchups are always going to be elite, and you know the best players are going to show out. Now, the league started playing Christmas games in 1947, so it's been a minute. But when it comes to memorable Christmas Day performances, well, there are more than I can count, but we're going to try right now. So for the record, I'm talking about individual performances, so guys that had insane stat lines, guys that took over games, even if their team lost. Here are my top 5 best NBA Christmas Day performances in history.
Play clock is 5. Score 4 goals. 3. A 2-home run and 1.
Kicking us off at number 5, I got Kobe Bryant. Kobe's played in 16 Christmas Day games, so you know he was going to make this list. So this Christmas game back in 2004 was one of the most highly anticipated matchups ever. Not just Christmas, but of all time. It was the first time Shaq and Kobe would face off against each other since Shaq's Lakers departure. I remember this game like it was yesterday. The hype was so real, before that was even a term. When you grow up on Shaq and Kobe and they dominate every bit of the early 2000s, obviously their first time playing against each other on Christmas, a day of love and compassion and warmth, a little bit of a feud, it's not the worst thing in the world. Days before the game, Shaq publicly made a reference calling Kobe a Corvette and himself a brick wall. And you know what happens when a Corvette hits a brick wall. There was a fist bump before the game, and it was on. Shaq blocked Kobe's first shot attempt. He also added a couple of hard fouls on Kobe, but Kobe shook it off to the tune of 42 points. Now, Shaq did have the last laugh as Miami won in OT, but out of the 122 games that Kobe scored 40 or more points in, this has to be one of the most memorable ones. At the number 4 spot, I'm rolling with the man, the myth, Nikola Jokic. So you'll remember this one because it was just this past year. But the Joker did something that only 3 players have ever done in a regular season game. It was Denver versus Phoenix. It was the last game of the Christmas Day special. And when I tell you Jokic was in his bag, Jokic was in his bag. Joker messed around and finished with, get this, 41 points, 15 rebounds, and 15 dimes. Wow! James Harden and the Big O, Oscar Robertson, are the only guys in history to ever have a stat line like that in a regular season game. Denver won the game by 3 points in overtime. He ruined Devin Booker's Christmas, and he made some history in the process. And of course, that game was a preview of things to come because obviously the Nuggets went on to win the championship that year. So how's that for some foreshadowing? I gotta go with Tracy McGrady at the number 3 spot. Flashback to Christmas Day 2003. This was actually the first Christmas Day basketball game that I ever watched start to finish. I just had no attention span up until 12 years old, and then it finally hit me like, Brad, we're gonna focus, we're gonna watch T-Mac and LeBron James go at it. It's LeBron's debut Christmas Day game, and we gotta just pay attention. Your boy was locked in. But the basketball world was hyped to watch a rookie LeBron James in his first Christmas game. And he most certainly did his thing, stuffing the stat sheet as expected. But LeBron's debut was spoiled by a prime T-Mac who poured in a game-high 41 points to go along with 11 assists and 8 boards. T-Mac was hitting tough shot after tough shot, had a handful of explosive dunks. He just sucked the gravity out of a building! Sorry. Oh yeah, and he had one of the prettiest finger rolls ever. Looked like he was going up for the dunk in the lane and then just floated it in as the Orlando Magic got the win. Oh, what simpler times. T-Mac rocking the pinstripe Orlando Magic throwback jersey, and babyface LeBron, rookie year, about to take on T-Mac, and you know, they're both coming out of high school and they have similar games at the time. Oh man, what a nice time to be alive. Oh, and just a fun fact, the Christmas Day before that one, in 2002, T-Mac poured in 46. He had a knack for performing on Christmas. He actually had a knack for performing all the time. That's why he's one of my favorite players of all time. At the number 2 spot, I'm taking Wilt the Stilt all day. Wilt obviously had a knack for putting up video game-like stat lines, but he saved one of his best for Christmas Day. What if I were to tell you that Chamberlain would drop 59 points, 36 rebounds, and the Warriors would still lose the game? How crazy is that? Hard to believe, but it happened. Somehow, someway, the New York Knicks won 136 to 135 in double overtime. But obviously Wilt got his revenge against my Knicks a couple months later, dropping 100, the most untouchable record ever. But I'm sorry, we can't forget about 59 and 36 on Christmas Day. I don't think we'll ever see a stat line like that ever again for the history of mankind. It was the most points scored on Christmas for 22 years until my number 1 pick broke that record. And with that number 1 pick for best Christmas Day performance, I got Bernard King. I'm not biased being a Knicks fan, but B King, way to represent, you deserve it. Kudos, King. He poured in a Christmas Day record, 60 points versus the New Jersey Nets in 1984. King went 19 of 30 from the field and 22 of 26 from the foul line. He also grabbed 7 boards and dished out 4 assists. But somehow, just like Wilt, his team lost as well. King went on to lead the league in scoring that year, but no one will ever forget the greatest game of his career. And it just happened to come on Christmas. Oh, and by the way, that record still stands 39 years later. Bernard King, we salute you. Do you think Bernard King's 60-point game is ever going to be broken? I think that's standing forever. All things to think about while sitting around the tree, sipping some eggnog, and watching the NBA on Christmas Day. With that being said, my name is Brad Parker, and that's my top 5.